The Total Screen proudly presents their official podcast, OnScreen, with your hosts, Tyson Gifford and William Rohrig. Hello, everybody, and welcome to OnScreen, the official podcast of the Total Screen. My name is Tyson.
My name is Will.
And today we are going to be talking about 2 more episodes of The Last of Us. That's episodes 6 and 7 of season 1 of The Last of Us. That'll be catching us up to where they are on the show right now. So we're going to be talking about that. We also have some stuff coming up on the horizon, and that's where we're going to get started with our On the Horizon segment.
On the horizon.
On the horizon is where we talk about stuff that's coming up in the next week or so. And the first thing we got here is on March 6th. That's a Monday. History of the World Part 2 is coming to Amazon Prime. This is the Mel Brooks movie, History of the World, and Mel Brooks has made a second one, but it's going to be like an anthology series or something this time.
Yeah, it's a series.
But yeah, lots of cast people because it's Mel Brooks, so they got a bunch of big names in it, you know. Seth Rogen is playing Moses or something. I don't know. They got all these like big roles for it. So that's what they're doing on Monday, March 6th on Amazon Prime. Also on Monday, March 6th, but on HBO, Perry Mason is returning for its second season. The first season of Perry Mason, like the remake series, was really good. So I'm excited about this. It'll be entertaining. And then on Thursday, March 9th on Paramount Plus, School Spirits debuts. This is Peyton List from Cobra Kai. She's kind of like the villain girl in Cobra Kai.
Yeah.
And it's about a high school in the afterlife. So it's like, I guess I saw some kind of a trailer for it, and it looks like they're kind of observing the natural world while also like attending classes and trying to figure out what happened to them.
Jesus, like even after you're dead, you have to go to school. What the fuck?
I think it's kind of like a purgatory kind of thing.
Yeah.
But like they can see their classmates and stuff, you know, like, and they're trying to figure out what happened.
Right.
I guess, with their life. I'm not sure, but that's School Spirits, Thursday, March 9th on Paramount Plus. Then Fatal Frame, Mask of the Lunar Eclipse Remaster is coming on Thursday, March 9th to PC, PS4, PS5, Xbox One, Xbox Series X. On Friday, March 10th, I believe it's called Champions. It got messed up in my show notes here. Comes out in movie theaters. This is about, it follows Woody Harrelson as a coach of a special ed basketball team.
Oh, okay.
Then also on Friday, March 10th, The Magic Flute hits theaters. This is we talked about this before when the trailer was out for it. It's kind of a fantasy movie about, classical music. Also on Friday, March 10th, 65 comes out in movie theaters. This is the Sam Raimi produced, but not directed movie starring Adam Driver, where they end up on Earth 65 million years ago in the era of the dinosaurs.
Mm-hmm.
And then, I know you'll be excited for this one, Scream 6.
Oh, yeah.
Theaters.
Scream 6 looks really good.
Also on March 10th. And that is our On the Horizon segment. And that only leaves full spoilers. This week on Full Spoilers, we are discussing episode 6 and 7 of The Last of Us. That's episode 6, Kin, and episode 7, Left Behind, both of the first season of The Last of Us. Let's get started. Let's talk about, this time it's not really like a two-parter in the way that the last two were, but they do kind of run together a little bit thematically. But let's talk about the first episode here, episode 6, Kin, which we talked before about how they're a long ways out from where their destination was, and they no longer had a car.
Well,
so we're like, talked like, how are they going to do this? Are they going to like find another way to get there, or is there going to be like a little time skip?
Yeah, it's a time skip.
Yeah.
It's funny because it opened on a time skip, and I'm like, so nothing interesting or pertinent happened between the last episode and the beginning of this episode. They had a pleasant walk to this place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It seems like it. It seems like they were basically just in isolation for a really long stretch. And then they ended up at an old couple's cabin and they kind of held them at gunpoint and were asking them for directions and information and supplies.
Yes.
And they took off from there. They were given this warning that there was going to be an issue with where they were headed, that there was like, you know, it was a very dangerous area and nobody returned from there or something. And they had to head in that direction
because
anyways.
of the bodies.
Yeah. And they knew that they were going to they had to head that direction. So they were going there anyways. They passed a dam, which Ellie said, oh, so they can get power from that? And she's like trying to figure out. And Joel's like, I have no idea how it works.
Yeah.
And then they get surrounded by people on horseback holding them at gunpoint, and they get checked. Joel's like almost has a panic attack because Ellie's going to be checked by this dog that's going to sniff it, and they said they're basically going to kill them if they detect any sign of infection on them. But everything turns out fine, and they go back into this town of Jackson that's like a gated off town, kind of hidden away, that's, you know, right in the area that was said to be super dangerous. So they really cultivated a good place for them to be, where everyone just kind of thinks, oh, that's not a safe place to go, so they just avoid it. And they're kind of this little off the grid, gated off community. And there Joel finds his brother.
Yeah. We meet back up with Tommy again for the first time since the pilot. And yeah, it turns out he's living his best life in this gated community, in this commune, who have managed to restore, you know, a semblance of life as it was before the apocalypse in this community. They have power. They have all the amenities, and
they have a movie theater,
they seem to be thriving. You know?
Yeah, definitely. It's a good place to stop if you just want to not live the apocalypse lifestyle anymore.
Yeah,
this is kind of like the ideal place to be. It's either like this,
it's
or
like an
Bill's
oasis in the desert. Right?
It's like this or Bill's house.
Yeah, this is even more than like Bill's house. This is a whole community, like Old Town. You know?
Yeah. So they end up in this town. They end up there. They meet up with Tommy. Like I said, the reunion doesn't really go super well because you can tell there's distance between Joel and Tommy from what they did before. Tommy really wanted to move away from it. Joel didn't at the time, and so there's like this kind of weight between them. And then there's also the sense that Joel like crossed the whole fucking country to find Tommy because he went silent. And Joel's like, what the fuck, man? Like, you couldn't have like notified me that you're okay or something? Like, why do you think I traveled all the way across the country, you know?
Right, yeah, exactly.
Just to try to save you, and you're here living your best life, you know? And it's you can tell there's a lot of trauma between them from the early days of the apocalypse here.
Yes.
That lives on, including we meet this woman, Maria, who is Tommy's, like, I guess spouse. I'm not sure if they're married or they're just together. But she's pregnant.
For sake of it, we'll say
partner.
Wife. Partner, yeah. Because, who knows who has the authority to conduct marriages. They make their own rules, you know?
Yeah, exactly. But this woman, Maria, she was an attorney. She's a bit of a tough cookie who doesn't put up with Joel's shit. Or Ellie's shit, for that matter. And she's pregnant with Tommy's child. And so that's another distance between Joel and Tommy, is that Joel kind of doesn't know how to handle that revelation, because it's like Tommy's going to settle down and have a family, and that's what Joel lost.
Yes.
So Joel doesn't kind of quite know how to handle that. And then also because, you know, they're fighting, Tommy and Joel, about everything else, like, Joel has a straight up panic attack.
Yes, he does.
And this is like leading into, I think what's happening here, the reason he's having panic attacks, I think the assumption isn't that he was always having panic attacks, but that Ellie opened him up to having something to lose again.
Yes.
And now that he has something to lose, and he's in this environment, he's terrified, and that's causing him to have panic attacks. And then everything with Tommy here is making him freak out, because he needs Tommy's help, but he doesn't want to like take Tommy away from that, but he's saying he does, and it's just creating a whole trauma for him.
Yeah.
He even believes he sees his daughter. And has a moment.
Yeah, he has a moment where he believes he sees his daughter, you know, so like, it gets to a point for Joel where he becomes convinced that he can't properly protect or take care of Ellie, and so he tries to get Tommy to take her.
Yeah, he like fully breaks down talking to Tommy. He's crying and saying like, I can't do this. I'm freezing up. I can't, like there's been multiple instances where I should have been able to help and just was frozen. I couldn't do anything. He's like, I've lost it. I've lost my edge. I can't do this anymore. Like it's not safe. I can't take her through this dangerous area. I need you to take her to this University of Eastern Colorado, which is where Tommy tells them the Fireflies are set up now. And he says, you're going to have to go through some scary territory to reach that, filled with both infected, but also raiders. And it's going to be very dangerous, but that's where the Fireflies are held up. And so Tommy agrees that he'll take Ellie after Joel tells him like the whole story. He doesn't want to, but he's going to do it.
Yes.
And Ellie overhears this and is pissed off at Joel because he's going to abandon her. He's like, everybody I care about is either dead or abandoned me, except you. And now you're abandoning me, you know? And so they have this big fight. And then when Ellie is going to leave with Tommy in the morning, Joel's there and he's like, I'm going to give you the choice. And she's like, no choice. She just goes right to Joel. Like, I'm going with you. There is no choice, you know?
Yeah. And they're off.
Yeah, so they take off.
Yeah. Again, it's a very Joel-centric episode.
Mm-hmm. It's kind of, I think, like the first time we truly get his perspective. Because we're seeing his vulnerabilities in a way we hadn't seen before.
Right, yeah, exactly.
Before, everything we saw with Joel was from the perspective of Joel putting up a front. And here we're like seeing behind that facade, you know, like how damaged he is.
Yeah, we're seeing like his fears, you know, and his anxieties full out in the open.
So they get to this university. It looks abandoned, but they see a firefly symbol on one of the
because the fireflies were supposed to be set up there.
Mm-hmm.
And so Joel was hoping to meet up with the fireflies. Yeah, when they get there, it's completely abandoned. There's evidence that the Fireflies were there, but they aren't anymore.
Yeah, thankfully there's no infected around, but there are like armies of monkeys.
A lot of monkeys.
Which they hear a sound and think it's infected, and they're like panicked and find out it's just monkeys. And they're like, okay, well, where are they now? And they get, I think it said something about Salt Lake City, Utah. Everything seemed to be, there was like a map pointing to there, that something's going down there. The Fireflies are probably there, but who knows? It's kind of weird that they would ditch out and leave a map showing where they are, where Fedra could find it, you know? So who knows what that map is actually for, but it seems to imply that might be where the Fireflies are stationed right now.
Yeah.
So they discover that. They're like, okay, they're not sure that they're going to go there now. They're like, okay, what are we going to do? They're looking for more information. And then they see people from out the window, raiders. And they're like, oh, fuck. So they want to sneak out now. They're trying to sneak out. They get to the horse and they're just about to sneak out. And one of the raiders finds them and Joel and him fight and Joel kills him. And then Ellie's kind of staring at Joel and you realize that Joel's got like a piece of a baseball bat, like broken off in his gut.
Yeah, he's been stabbed in the gut. Yeah.
Which I don't know what's up with characters of The Last of Us, like not realizing that they've been stabbed until somebody else points it out to them. Or like not realizing they're bitten or something. Like just completely like being oblivious to pain, I guess.
Maybe
it's just the cold.
Adrenaline in the moment. Yeah, maybe it's the cold. Yeah.
I don't know. They're just numb.
Feel pain.
They're just numb because of the cold. But he sees that, pulls it out, and he's like bleeding out now and in trouble. And they get on the horse, and he's taking him away. And Ellie's shooting at the other raiders, and they make their distance. They get away. But as they're like making their way through that, like going down like train tracks, basically on a horse, Joel just straight up falls off the horse.
Yeah,
seemingly dead. I mean, that's what it felt like at the end of the episode. Like, oh, he's breathing his last breaths right now. And that takes us to the next episode, which is Left Behind, which picks up right where it left off with Joel down. Ellie gets him to a house. We don't see that happen, but we cut to a house and we see them inside of it. And Joel's on the ground, still bleeding out. And Ellie's like freaking out. And Joel's telling her to go away, to run away and stuff. And she starts to run away. Like she goes up the stairs, grabs the handle, and we're immediately cut back in time to Ellie when she was in her Fedra training school.
Yeah. So this is now an Ellie episode.
A flashback episode, yeah.
Yeah, we get a flashback episode about Ellie explaining some of her history.
It had hints of it. She said there was a part where Ellie had hurt somebody and Joel ended up killing him. And he said, you never had to do this. Like you shouldn't have had to have hurt somebody. And he's like, I'm sorry. That shouldn't have been. And she said, I already have hurt somebody.
Right.
And we don't know. So there's been all this like kind of cryptic hints. In the first episode even, there was a scene with Marlene talking to Ellie or something, and they reference somebody that, like, oh, how did that work out for her or something, And you're like, who? Like, what's going on? Like, this is backstory elements that have been set up, but we haven't seen.
No, we don't explore that here. She doesn't kill anybody in this episode, as far as I know. Like, yeah, sure, like, infected, but I don't think she was referring to an infected, like,
unless she was unless she blames herself for something else that happens at the end.
Yeah, unless she's talking about indirectly.
Yeah.
But,
and she has hurt somebody. She does attack somebody in this episode. She puts somebody in the hospital.
Yeah, she does, yeah.
Because where this picks up immediately is you see a bunch of girls in like an inside track running laps.
Yeah, in a gym. And what looks like a typical school gym running laps.
And Ellie's running, everybody's running fast, and Ellie's just kind of keeping her pace, listening to a Walkman and running. And then another girl runs by her, a really big girl, and like just kind of pushes her down and like steals her Walkman from her and is acting like a total bully. And they get in a fight and Ellie starts attacking her, and then we cut to it's the principal's office type scene, except it's a captain from Fedra.
Yeah.
Named Captain Kwong, and he is talking to her and he gives her a lecture saying like, you have two paths. You can, one path you'll end up a grunt, and Bethany, the girl that she had just fought, will probably be your superior, and you'll just work in shitty conditions until you either get shot, get infected, your hair gets caught in a track of a tank and you get killed. He makes like some graphic thing, and you're probably going to be under the leadership of somebody like Bethany. It's going to be your leader who's just going to treat you like shit the whole time because she hates you. Like, that's your future if you continue down the path you're going right now. Or because you're smart, if you start applying yourself, you could become an officer. You'll always be living in better conditions, and you'll be able to talk down to the Bethanys of the world. You'll be like in charge of them. And she says, okay, yeah, I want to go down the right path. And it seems like she's making a commitment to do that. Before that even happens, though, like in her fight with Bethany and stuff, they imply that she had a friend that did her fighting for her and stuff like that. So we cut to Ellie. She's laying in bed and somebody opens up her window and is sneaking in. At first I thought that was like Bethany taking revenge or something, that it was going to be some issue, but no, it's somebody else. It's her, I guess her former roommate and friend, her only friend at this place, Riley.
Yes.
And Riley has been missing for like a couple of months. And Ellie thought she was dead. And so Ellie's pissed off at her. She's like, how could you do that? How could you just leave me with no notice? I thought you were dead. What the hell? And Riley convinces Ellie to go on a little, ditch day trip, like, let's go out in the night and we'll have fun. I have something to show you, the best night of your life. Let's go and have that. And what we end up finding later is that this is Riley like saying goodbye because she's going to leave. But she takes Ellie, they end up going to like an abandoned mall that was thought to be off limits, but is apparently clear.
Well, Riley has, some things, that she's not like fully telling Ellie,
Yeah, she's putting it off like it's a surprise.
Like it's a surprise. Ellie has to like kind of tease it out of her.
Mm-hmm.
But Riley's big thing is that in her time away, she joined the Fireflies.
Mm-hmm. And she wants to show Ellie like the best night of her life. And so they end up in a mall that's getting power because I guess Fedra turned on power in some area, and without even realizing it, they ended up supplying power to this mall as well.
I guess. I don't know how you could not realize it. Like that's a pretty big oversight.
Tied into the same power lines or whatever.
It's tied into the power lines, but they apparently sealed off the mall because it was full of infected. Although when they get in there, it doesn't seem to be much infected. So
yeah, so either somebody cleared them out, they wandered off and left that area, or what, there really isn't much in the way of infected. And so she's taking her through the mall, and they're having a ball going through like all these, it's just kind of all these things that they'd never seen before. They see like a Victoria's Secret storefront, and Ellie stops for a second looking kind of at her reflection in the mirror over the mannequin body with like lingerie on, and you can tell it's these kind kind of things that kids go through when you're like in that age, you know, of like these notions that seem silly in the apocalypse.
Yeah, exactly.
And so they're going through and they're having fun and checking out all these storefronts and stuff. They go and we get a little payoff for something that happened. And I think it was in the third episode. It was the beginning of the third episode before all the Bill stuff started, where Ellie was talking about Mortal Kombat 2. And they get into an arcade and there's a Mortal Kombat 2 machine and they're playing Mortal Kombat 2. It's like a big commercial for an old game.
Yeah. How much is Ed Boon paying them for this?
Yeah. But they're playing Mortal Kombat 2, and she had talked about that before, like I said, in episode 3, and now they're having a whole scene where they're figuring out the game and playing it, and they're having a great time. This is, you know, everything Ellie ever dreamed of, you know? And as all this is happening, we get this cutaway moment where we pull away from the arcade and realize that there's still an infected in the mall. And it's like, oh, okay, now there's like a ticking clock. We know bad's gonna happen. That was Chekhov's infected, you know? Something bad is on its way now. So they're continuing to have fun.
Chekhov's infected. Yeah.
They're continuing to have fun, and they even kiss. And this is where it's kind of revealed that Ellie has had this crush on her friend, basically.
It gets really, really emotional. Yeah, because it reaches that crescendo, and then Riley drops the bomb. Not literal, although she does have literal bombs. By the way.
She doesn't drop those, thankfully.
She doesn't drop those. She drops the bomb that she's leaving. She's leaving with the Fireflies. She's leaving Boston.
I think she's going to Atlanta, I think she said.
And she's leaving Ellie behind.
Mm-hmm. She said that she even asked if she could take Ellie with her, and they said no.
Yeah, Marlene said no. And so that hurts Ellie to the point where, she gets real upset.
She just basically had her first kiss, at least that's implied. And, like, you know, finally, like, opened up to this girl that she has a crush on, obviously.
Yes.
And seemed to not get rejected. You know, they never really directly state what they are at that point. But, like, that's the moment where she reveals she has to go, you know?
Yeah, that's what she reveals that she has to leave. And, yeah, there's a lot of emotion involved. Ellie storms off.
She decides to head back, and then as she's heading back, she hears a scream.
Yeah.
And she runs to it and...
Yeah, the silly, like, misdirect that they do at the end of it, which I thought was silly. The misdirect with the scream, which turned out to be like a Halloween prop.
Mm. And so they're in this Halloween store and they're dancing and kind of having fun and they're drinking the liquor that they had found. We didn't mention that before, but they had found
the liquor they found on the corpse.
Yeah. They found a corpse with a bottle of liquor and some pills, and they took the liquor and went and they were drinking that and dancing, wearing like Halloween masks, and that was kind of their final moment before Riley was going to leave and Ellie was going to go back to school. And
then the one solitary infected in the place that we saw decides to make that the moment to attack.
Yeah. Attacks them. They're struggling hard.
Yeah.
Ellie ends up killing him, stabs him in the head a few times with her knife. And then she's like all kind of celebrating, like, yeah, this is great. You know, like that was awesome, you know, because Ellie's kind of crazy and likes to kill.
I don't think she's kind of crazy and likes to kill, but it was a feel like it was scary, but she overcame it. She killed it, so she feels like a badass in that moment.
Yeah, she really is celebrating her win, her kill.
Yeah.
And while she's doing that, Riley's kind of looking at her like something's wrong, you know? And she looks down at Ellie's arm and Ellie realizes that she's been bitten. And we know, because we've seen that was the spot that had been infected before.
It's interesting. All the times in the show, when somebody gets bit, they don't directly show it. It's always like, oh, there's a scuffle. You don't really get to see, like, any point of contact in the scuffle. And then after scuffle, like, there's this revelation, oh, they've been bit.
It's not just with the bite, remember? Because it happened.
You never see the bite.
It's not just the bite, because it happened with Joel with the baseball bat, too.
Yeah, exactly.
It's the same thing, you know? Like, that's why I was joking. Like, it's like people on this show, they, like, take a mortal wound and they're just like, oh, shit. Like afterwards realize.
Yeah, it's a good point you make.
It's done for dramatic effect.
It's done for dramatic effect. Yeah, it's to make you think like everything worked out, but it didn't. But yeah, realistically, if you looked at the bite on Ellie's arm, if you got bit like that, like, you would know right away. Like, there wouldn't be like, oh shit, yeah, I'm the what? What's this bite? No. It's like,
Yeah.
it doesn't work that way. Like, you're not immune to pain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Ellie's got this big gnarly bite on her arm. The second it's pointed out to her, she freaks out, gets really angry, and just starts smashing stuff.
Yeah.
And there's like a disparity between what she's doing and what Riley's doing. Because Riley's just kind of sits down and gets quiet. And Ellie's just freaking out and in a panic and in a rage. And then once Ellie calms down and sits down next to Riley, Riley says, okay, well, here are our options. Option 1, we take the easy way out. We kill ourselves fast, painless, it's done. And they said, but that's cheap. That's too easy. Like, we need to take option 2, which is just that we're going to just wait until this happens and spend our last moments together and then we'll die. Or not die, but become...
Yeah, they'll become
infected.
Basically, she offers to just live the rest of their short lives as fully as possible.
Mm-hmm.
That's what she's saying. Knowing that Riley being bitch, she can't go back to Marlene.
Mm-hmm.
And similarly, Ellie can't go back.
Yeah. Oh, they're both dead. They're both dead. Yeah, but they can't go back to where they can't seek help. Mm-hmm.
Because if either of their factions saw those bites, they'd kill them.
Yeah.
On site. Like,
yeah.
It would not be like even a question of, it's kind of like, yeah, they're in limbo now and kind of like on borrowed time at this point. Ellie doesn't know that she's special.
Yeah.
Riley certainly isn't special in this regard.
What's interesting is that this is where the flashback ends. Like, we don't see a moment, because I was wondering when this happened. I'm like, I wonder if what ended up making Ellie special might have to do with the infected that attacked them. And maybe Riley was going to be okay, but she killed her.
It's just as simple as, like, Ellie has a natural immunity.
We just don't see the scene where they turn, is what I mean. We don't see that scene. We don't find out the information. We're just supposed to know at that point.
We don't know what happened directly following that, or how Ellie ended up being captured by the Fireflies, or like how they figured out in the first place that she was immune, like how they determined that.
Yeah.
We don't get the specifics of that. It just ends there. It's really just about Ellie's relationship with this girl and how Ellie ended up with the bite in the first place that obviously changed her life.
And what this leads to is, and they mentioned this in the after show thing too, is that as this flashback ends, Ellie, who was kind of on the verge of running away from Joel being wounded and dying, kind of has that moment where, and it's inspired by Riley saying, we don't take the easy way out. And that's her like cue to return to Joel and very harshly just start stitching him up, with no painkillers there. She's just using like a fishing line or whatever to like stitch him up. And he's kind of screaming out in pain as she's doing it. And she's just determined. She's like, no, I'm not going to let you die. We're going to continue on. And that's kind of what they set up this whole flashback as, is kind of almost like to show her motivation for why she would do that and not just run away.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
And that's where the episode ends. She's stitching up Joel and that's it. So what are you thinking about the show right now? We only got 2 episodes left.
No, it's great. It's a great show. I feel like it hasn't faltered since it started. Really strong emphasis on characters and strong characterization. Really helps keep it interesting and compelling week to week.
This is probably to me, the second best episode after the third episode.
And that's what I heard from like a number of people.
Yeah, too. I like the stuff that's different, because as I've said, this show's very tropey. We've had so many post-apocalyptic shows. I like the episodes that are showing us something very different from what we're used to seeing. We've seen in so many post-apocalyptic shows now, especially The Walking Dead, we've seen a bunch of like gated off towns and reunions with people that hadn't seen each other in years, and like all these kind of tropey things we've seen them. We've seen raiders attacking. We've seen all this kind of stuff we've seen a million times, but what we don't see that often is something like, Bill and Frank's relationship, or this kind of like mall adventure, which is one of the first zombie movies was Dawn of the Dead, which took place in a mall, but even still, like, we don't see that much like that, like an adventure, something where it's more fun. It's this kind of coming of age moment with some kids. We don't get that too often, and so that made this a more entertaining episode to me.
Yeah, and that's fair.
And,
yeah, it was a good episode. So, I don't mind.
Yeah, 2 episodes left, and we'll be done with the series. But we are not going to be
done with the season.
Season, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, maybe. We don't know. Maybe we'll be really disappointed. We're done.
We're done. But you've already been renewed. Shut up.
But we'll be done with the season with 2 more episodes. We're not going to be discussing any of the episodes next week, though. We're going to talk about both of those episodes together in 2 weeks. Next week, we are going to be revisiting our MCU Tier Time list. So we did an episode before where we went through and we ranked all of the Marvel movies, or not ranked, but we placed them into a tier list, and everything that was out yet at that time. And we'd always kind of wondered after we did that, we knew we were going to come back to it because, obviously more stuff comes out, so we're eventually going to come back, and we thought when are we going to come back? We weren't really sure when we were going to do it. And we did it the first one, kind of in the middle of phase 4. And now phase 4 is done. So we just decided, you know what? We're going to go back and we're going to get the rest of the stuff that came out within phase 4, and we'll do that. And then now we have kind of a good outline for when we're going to come back to tier time. We'll just come back after each phase completes. So when a phase completes, we'll go back, do another tier time, and I'll add all of those to the tier list. And so that's what we're going to do here. We're going to close out phase 4 on the tier list. Going to get in stuff like Multiverse of Madness and Werewolf by Night and Thor Love and Thunder and all those movies. We're going to be placing those into the tier list next week. So thank you everybody for listening. You can follow me on Twitter. I am at Tyson Gifford. You can follow Will. He is at Voxel Hero. You can check out our Facebook page, our SoundCloud page. If you go to our website, thetotalscreen.com, and you open up the container story for any of our podcast episodes, you'll find all of those relevant links and be able to follow us in any of our social media platforms that we are on. Of course, the best way to reach us, as I mentioned, is on our personal Twitter accounts. Again, I'm at Tyson Gifford. Will is at Voxel Hero. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Good night.
Good night.
Thank you for listening to the OnScreen podcast, the official podcast of The Total Screen. Visit our website at thetotalscreen.com. This podcast can be found on any major podcast client, including Pocket Cast and Apple Podcast. The entire backlog of this podcast and other content can be found on our YouTube channel.